Messy is actually sexy, messy itself, because life is messy, right? And I think that's, in my experience and certainly with the people I work with, part of it is having to pretend that it's not messy.
Recently, what I've discovered is our authentic self are those shadow parts of ourself that we rejected, and that's our real self. And this is why we're meant to embrace and love our shadows and integrate them into our being.
To me, living authentically is about showing up and letting all of those parts be there, and even welcoming them and not trying to hide them or pretend like they don't exist or talk down to them or belittle them.
When I learned about nonviolent communication, I was able to express my needs in a more of a request instead of a demand energy. That has helped me to be honest and still respectful of other people's needs.
A lot of women have shame about their bodies, owning their bodies, accepting their bodies, whether or not you wear makeup or not. It's really up to the individual. Welcome to today's wonderful Wisdom Circle. My name's Sophia from Sacred You, and we have the absolute honour, and I am truly excited of hosting these Wisdom Circles because it's a topic close to my heart and really, I think, in the world is how can we be ourselves and live authentically? So being you, living life authentically in a world that is full of masks. And with us today is our beautiful facilitator, and for our very first time, so I just want to take a moment, first of all, just to honour you, Jenny. Really, truly honour you for bringing this topic to Sacred You and taking that step to facilitating a wisdom circle. So thank you. I'm going to hand it over to you to continue, and I'll be here for the whole topic.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. I feel really privileged to be here actually, and to be in the company of you and these other women. My name is Jennylee Taylor. I'm a breathwork practitioner and facilitator and trainer, training other practitioners in the Newcastle area in New South Wales, Australia. And this topic is really dear to my heart. I'm very excited about talking about being you and living life authentically, because I find in my working with people it's the one thing that people come to me and say, and there's a big sigh when they say it, they just go, I just want to be me. I just want to be me. I just want to have no masks. I don't want to have to make excuses for who I am. I want to dress how I want to be. I want to act how I want, and all those sorts of things. So my work really helps people to dive deep into what is holding them back, or why is it they feel they can't be me. I'm really excited about opening this conversation and finding ways and insights that people can use in their daily life to come back to that place of feeling authentic in how they live, work and play. I'd like to introduce the other women here today, and I'll start with how you're showing up on my screen is Samantha. The lovely Samantha Wittenberg. It's the first time I've met Samantha, indeed all these women except Sophia. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your take on this topic?
So yes, I work with carers and parents of neurodivergent children, and part of what I support them with is the unmasking, which is something that maybe I can talk a little bit later further about, where autistic or neurodivergent people pretend to be neurotypical and the toll that takes on them. And that's just an extreme case, I think, of what we all perhaps do to some extent. So I'm really interested in the topic with the neurodivergent, through a neurodivergent lens. And yeah, so that's me. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. That word, I think we'll dive into that word pretend a little bit more down the track today. Thank you. Janaki, welcome, and please come on board. I was reading your website and you described yourself as a quantum igniter. Tell us a bit about yourself and that.
Yes, as far as the quantum igniter, I partner with a sound weaver, soul seer, and quantum igniter here to ignite our God spark in one's heart. And it's not the God spark of the religion of the boxes of the shame paradigm. We can get into that more because I feel the shame paradigm is what keeps us from our inauthenticity, because we get stuck in the right, wrong, good, bad, not enough, too much, and broken paradigm, and stuck in our head and stinking thinking. And so I say it gets in our doo-doo self versus our being, which we're here for. And so, yeah, it's igniting our God self. It's the remembrance of our infinite source that we are, that we live in, that we are here to live in, and that we're all God's sovereign beings. I love this topic. When I was asked, I have lots going on in my life right now. Bit of some dancing through the storms, embracing the storms, and being the eye of the storm, and witnessing so much miracles and magic being birthed from the chaos. So when I received the invitation, I'm like, I align with this subject. Yes, indeed, I will sign up no matter what's going on in my life, because this is what is one of my core values, is my authentic expression of truth. Because I grew up as the people pleaser. My parents would fight. My joke is they would fist fight or meditate. And so every time I spoke up, I took on that over responsibility role, thinking I caused the conflict. My inner child thought that. So I became the people pleaser. I became wearing that mask. And I'll go share more. That's why I host women's retreat, where we do mask rituals and we burn the mask that we've hidden behind so we can step into our full authenticity. So I stand for being the bridge of authenticity and vulnerability. And I can share a little bit more of that a little bit into our conversation, because I feel both are important. And I used to shame my vulnerability and found out it's actually one of my superpowers. So yeah, that is a little bit about me. And I have busted through so many shame paradigms is simply by embracing what I have shamed. And it is so liberating. And my most recent one is sexy is messy. And I'm like, I was shamed for being messy. And now that I can embrace it, I don't have to identify with it anymore. And so I find the more we can embrace something, we integrate it into our being, and then we don't have that pattern that requires to come up until we can love it. That's what I support, my turning our triggers into treasures and wounds into wisdom, because the pattern will continue to repeat until we can love it, because love is what transcends the illusion. So that's what I support my clients with. And I do a lot of play. Sound repetition play, because it's a fast way to reprogram someone's mind and bring our head and heart in coherence, where you plant seeds in fertile soil for the desires of your heart. I'm complete at this now moment.
All right, thank you. And Jenny's just dropped out, coming back, because of course Jenny is experiencing tech issues today with the wonders of this world. Laura, what about your beautiful self? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so thank you. And I'm so excited to be here. And that was beautiful, by the way. I really resonated with everything that you said, Janaki. So thank you for that. My name is Laura, and I help people quit unwanted or frustrating behaviors. I specialize in body-focused repetitive behaviors like hair pulling, skin picking, nail biting, but the strategies that I use work for any unwanted behavior. And I'm really excited to be here for this topic today, because I have struggled with trichotillomania, or compulsive hair pulling. And it started when I was about 12. And for 20 years, I did not tell a single soul that I was pulling my own hair out. People knew that I had bald spots, but I said that it was a medical condition. And so this has been quite the journey for me over the past 10 or so years of becoming myself and shedding the shame and taking off this mask of, no, I don't have these compulsive behaviors. No, I'm this successful person, and saying, no, I am messy and this is part of me and I'm going to embrace it. And I'm able now to feel gratitude towards my hair pulling, because it helps me understand when I'm dysregulated. It tells me that I'm dysregulated before I know that I'm dysregulated. And that's a bit about my kind of journey of becoming my authentic self. I went from truly 10 years ago, had not even told my husband of 10 years that I was the one pulling my hair out, to now I've got it plastered all over my website and on Instagram and coaching. And so, yeah, so I'm really excited to be here because this being your true self is really important to me. And it's been a very important journey that I've been on and trying to help other people with as well.
Fantastic. Can you all hear me again? Sorry, I dropped out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. And Janaka, that sexy is messy. I was just thinking when Laura was talking that messy is actually sexy, messy itself, because life is messy. And I think that's in my experience, and in certainly with the people I work with, part of it is having to pretend that it's not messy. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for all of that. Sophia, did you want to say anything else before we get cracking with some questions?
Yes, and thank you, Jenny. And besides being the co-creator of Sacred You, but just briefly, one of the reasons why I identified with this topic so much is because I was born with the body in a genetic condition. And spending my life of having masks of trying to be not who I was, trying to be better than who I was, to be perceived in other people's eyes as not being someone with challenges. Very much so. That's why I love it. And the whole thing about self-acceptance and rejection and all that type of stuff. So I love the topic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Wow, what a wonderful bunch of women to talk about this topic. I had some pre-planned questions, but I'm not really sure that I want to go down that track. But one of them, the first one was, what does living authentically mean to you? And how does that show up? What is the biggest concern for people in the work you do with others, in whatever your audience is? What does it actually mean to live authentically? Janaka, would you like to start with that?
Yes, I can go. Like I said, I love this because this is my core value. What I recently discovered, especially because I had a lot of unconscious shame around this perception of me being messy. And I remember one time writing down, like, why are you not putting on this master class, or why are you not having these online things? And I'm like, oh, I want it to be perfect. And I said, what if it were to be messy? What if it were to be imperfect? And then the moment I wrote down imperfect, because I am a word magician, so I see beyond the spells of spelling, at least in the English language and the way it's spelled. And so I was like, imperfect, I saw I am perfect. And then that's what I received, that is the path of Christ consciousness, is embracing these perceived imperfections instead of trying to be this perceived way. That's not living to your authentic self. So recently what I've discovered is our authentic self are those shadow parts of ourself that we rejected, and that's our real self. And this is why we're meant to embrace and love our shadows and integrate them into our being, because that's where I have discovered my most liberation. Two of the biggest things I shamed within my life is my sensual and sexual energy and the mess. And so by simply be willing to, you know what, I'm going to model this mess. I've shown up to a master full class naked because I listen to my inner guidance. So I do a lot of things that make no sense. And I live by my inner guidance, by my inner authority, hearing God within me. And as I was sharing about authenticity, also vulnerability, I used to shame unconscious vulnerability, because authenticity I see is living to your soul's truth, and vulnerability is the perceived weaknesses. If we're constantly shaming those perceived weaknesses, how are we going to transmute them into our great strengths? And so I've discovered, wow, my vulnerability is actually my superpower. And I was shaming that human aspect of myself, because I say, we're already spiritual beings. Let's be fucking human. Let's be human. Let's enjoy our full expression of ourselves. And I witness in my life and business, the more I show up in my big energy, because I used to have that shame of, oh, you're too much. Let's shine your light. You're going to outshine others. And it actually calls others deeper into themselves to shine bright with you. And I find if people are triggered, I now actually say, oh, you're welcome. Because yeah, that's what we're here, is to be our big. And other people have shared how it gives them permission to shine bright. It gives them permission to be in their big energy. And as I simply, that's what I say is my gift, is show up, shine, and share, and embrace your whole full soul, whatever that is for you, whatever way that is for you. So that's, like I said, this has been, I really love this topic.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And that whole concept of, I love your big bright energy, by the way. Thank you so much for that. And that idea of being shamed and vulnerable, that's a really tricky place for most people to come from. And I know it's been part of my journey, especially being shamed for being sexy. And then I figured out the difference between what sexy mean and what the difference between sexy and sensual. And maybe you could talk about that at another time. But there's also this place of being vulnerable. It is really the place of growth, is it? And it's scary to be vulnerable, yet it's the place where in our vulnerability our strengths lies, because if we can be open and vulnerable and be open to hello, we can be open to allowing ourselves to go to a place that feels a bit like we've got nothing to hide behind. It's actually where the growth comes from. Yeah. So Laura, how do you see showing up authentically in life?
Yeah, I tend to look at it as we have all these different parts of ourselves, right? And I often lean into IFS, internal family systems, which is a parts model. And to me, living authentically is not having to hide or squash any of those parts of us. It's letting it all be there, whether it's a part that is socially acceptable or maybe not so socially acceptable. And again, I go back to the hair pulling, right? That's not socially acceptable. And so I hid it for so many years. But that shame that I carried about it, that shame is toxic to us. And so when we have these parts that we can't even show to our most intimate relationships, it really is toxic. And so to me, living authentically is about showing up and letting all of those parts be there and even welcoming them and not trying to hide them or pretend like they don't exist or talk down to them or belittle them.
Yeah, great. And when you're hiding that,
Is it me or is she cutting out a bit?
Jenny will be back. Jenny's just got tech issues, so that's okay. She'll come back in a sec. You're back with us, Jenny. It's okay. We live in a world of technology. We all know that we have tech issues. Okay.
I don't know. The energy, I think the energy is too big in this space right now. Technology to handle. We're talking about being open and authentic, and technology is trying to close this down, but that's okay. Talking about how much energy it takes to hide and how draining that can be. Did you get that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Over time, that we think we don't want to be than being ourselves. How do you find showing up authentically? What does it mean?
Me? Yeah, I've recently been through an experience where I was in a state of ongoing anxiety, and which is not my normal state. It really opened my eyes to what it feels like to live in a state of anxiety. I was out of everything familiar to me, and so I reached out to friends a lot, although it wasn't even as much as I wanted to. I obviously respect their time and all of that. So I reached out a lot, and then one of those friends ended up saying that, I don't know, basically like it was too, something like it was too much. And what I heard was that she was not able to manage her own boundaries in it. Like she wasn't able to say, I don't have capacity for more. This is not a good time for me. And then I went into shame about who am I, like why, who do I think I am, trying to reach out to friends and get support. I don't know. It was so perverse, really, because reaching out is the healthy thing to do. Reaching out for support is the healthy thing to do. And if someone is, and I'm not responsible for other people's ability to put boundaries up, if they can't, I hope that by now they know me well enough to know that I would totally respect a no, even as intense as my experience was that I was going through. I can hear a no. And that's because I guess in some ways authenticity is also very much one of my core values, and honesty. So I've been very brutally honest as I was growing up, which had impact on people. And then when I learned about nonviolent communication, I was able to express my needs in a more of a request instead of a demand energy. So that has helped me to be honest and still respectful of other people's needs. And now, so for a while, it was like I was so honest, I was over the top honest. Then I pulled right back. And now I'm finding, now in my mid-50s, I'm finding it's just an ongoing journey of what is my authenticity now? Because yes, there are times I actually want to be more honest, and I do find myself holding back because of a fear of hurting other people. I've done that so much in my early life. I've hurt people through my honesty, and that matters to me a lot. Yeah, while I'm not responsible for other people's emotions to some extent, the more aware, the more conscious we become, we are responsible for the impacts we're having around us. That's like a very messy way of expressing myself right now. And I'm also embracing, I also feel like I've always been messy, like even the way I show up physically, and I see these other women, they're so well groomed and they've got the makeup all sorted and the clothes and all of that. That used to, was like, why can't I be like that? And so authenticity for me is embracing that messiness too. And I loved what a message I got from one of my teachers was, your mess is your message. So if you didn't live some kind of mess, you're not going to have a strong message to share with other people. I love that. My mess is my message.
Thank you, Samantha. I dropped out a couple of times there and I didn't get all of what you said, but I think I get the gist. I think there's a theme here that messy is sexy and messy is great and messy is okay, and being imperfect is actually, describe yourself on your website as a recovering perfectionist. There's probably a lot of other women out there in particular who are doing that as well. And that's why I love this theme of messy is the reason that we can't just be ourselves. We've talked about a little bit about shame, pretending. Samantha, you just mentioned that as someone who doesn't want to hurt others, being that people pleaser and toning ourselves down or not doing what people's opinions, hurting others. You can have a deeper discussion, holds people back from being able to speak out, because we can speak out and be ourselves with compassion, right? We don't have to be that person who's speaking out in a way that does hurt others. And when we go
breaking up a lot, Jenny.
You might want to just type something in the chat if you want to, and I can repeat it if you want to, but yeah, we can't hear you very much at the moment. But if I may, while you type anything in until you come back properly, then if I can, it's okay. Like I said, tech issues, there's a lot of energy around today. But Samantha, I'd love to continue what you said. I think it's really great and it's true. For me, living authentically, there's so many different aspects, but there's two major ones. One is physically. And that's what I was going to say. So much in today's world, especially women, we have all these, I don't know, in the world of social media, that we need to look like this, but we need to be like this. And going on from what you were saying, Samantha, and even Janaki and Laura, a lot of women have shame about their bodies, living and owning their bodies, accepting their bodies, whether or not you wear makeup or not. It's really up to the individual. And I spend a lot of time, especially in my body, because I look different, and being ashamed of it because I didn't think it was accepted. I got very bullied as a child, but even growing up, it's like people were seeing me as different. So then I got to a stage where it doesn't matter. It's my body. I can just, as long as if I'm happy with it and I love it and I accept it. So then you start to, I think, value your differences. You value your weirdness, the way you look, and it makes you unique. So part of the being authentic is valuing our uniqueness on a physical thing. And also the other thing is on the inner level. I spent many years, and especially just recently with sacred, I don't know why, I still don't know why, the universe has got me being the co-creator of Sacred You, and I've got what the? I go, what the? Me? No. And I was wearing a mask because as the co-creator, I had a belief that I've got to have it together, perceived that I've got it together. And I don't have it together. So it's letting go of that and being real, because, and again, a lot of women go through this, we forget that we're all going through a journey, that, you know, and it's okay to be real and authentic, because that actually gives not the approval, it gives permission for other women to be authentic and go through their shit as well. Exactly what Janaki was talking about. We can all go through our shit and it's okay. It doesn't matter what role you're playing. We all got shit to go through and it's fine. So that's just what I'd like to add as Jenny keeps coming on. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they would like to share, and maybe going into what steps do we take to actually become truly authentic? But Jenny's back. Are you back with us, Jenny? Not yet.
I've popped in about 5 or 6 times and I've been trying to type in a question and it hasn't even wanted to accept that. Wow, this is real. This is being authentic, everyone. Thank you for holding the space for that, Sophia. So what I'm curious to dive deeper into, can everyone still hear me? Yeah. Is that line between saying yes to yourself and speaking up with authentically on how you're feeling, how you want to be in the world, versus that fear of that.
It's a messy session.
Yeah. And it's okay to be messy. And this is a bit, how do we live authentically and accept mess? You know, I sit here because I know we have to edit this and I'm going and we want it to be as perfect as possible and stuff. But how do we, if I can share, ask, how do you be authentic and accept your bloody mess?
I got that one. So when I was little, as I shared, I had a lot of punishment for being messy. And so I discovered to shame my mess. And I remember about a year ago, around in September, it was end of September, I told my mom, I said, now that I no longer strive for perfection, and it's willing to show up as you are. It's show up in the mess. You don't have to be perfect, because that's what I've discovered is the more we can embrace our perceived imperfections, the more we become God's perfect masterpiece. We give others permission to be themselves so they don't have to pretend anymore. And when we show up And sharing those things that we've shamed and letting those things be seen, letting ourselves be seen in all the ways and all the messy instead of just this pretend perfectness. We want to be human. We want to be human. And so, yeah, when I told my mom that, it was such a powerful experience. It was in Sedona. And I looked in her eyes and I said, Mom, now that I no longer strive for perfection, now that I no longer hide behind my mess, I no longer shame myself through your eyes. And shame is part of that construct that keeps us small. How are we to expand our planet if we're not living our full, whole soul? The message I received from air, because I do a reverence practice with the elements, and as I was thanking the air, I received the message of the power of the unseen, and immediately I heard, oh, this whole perception of individuality, of duality, of this perceived separation is for our full integration of our truest liberation. And so that's what I believe, and that's what I stand for, is being the expression of our full, whole soul. So those things that are hidden in the shadows, those things that are hidden in the darkness, those things we run from, I'll tell you what, diving into the void of what I avoided, oh my God, opened me up in so many ways. And so our willingness to really, because it's in the darkness. I do this in my I am journeys. They're safe and secure. And we go into the darkness. We go into those places because if you think you know what it is, it's not it. It's beyond the knowing where we experience the most growing. And that can seem uncomfortable. That's the dark area. That's the shadows. But we don't know it yet. So of course it's going to be uncomfortable. So our willingness to be comfortable with uncomfortable and show up as we are, like, here I am. And for me, what's helped me, honestly, is the embodiment of, and sometimes it may not always be fully, most 90%, maybe 95% of the time now, I have a zero fucks attitude. I'm like, because I took so much of what others said about me personally and made it my truth that I didn't know who I was. So you got to embody the zero fucks. Okay, and we see our world as we see ourselves. So you can love and you can receive what others are saying. You don't have to digest it and take it on. You can say, how is this a mirror for me? How is this reflecting for me, without that over shame, blame, and taking the world onto your shoulders? So that's what my suggestion is. Embrace those things that you avoid and give them a big hug.
Yes, and I want to add to that something. We need to be aware of those things that do feel can be jarring for other people. This is, I'm speaking for myself. So it's letting them in on that somehow. So it's not, I wouldn't say I don't give a fuck. It's more that I want to feel free to be my authentic self, and I want to frame that for other people. For example, a lot of autistic people, particularly if they in a more privileged situation, let's say they're a senior, have a position at work, and they're able to do this, they can let people know that I really appreciate really direct communication. So if you are wanting to tell me something, tell me in the most direct, straightforward way, because I can't understand like innuendo, or I can't guess anything other than what you're saying to me directly. So in a romantic relationship situation, it's like you have to say to the person, hey, I really like you, I'm interested in you, and I'm thinking about, I'd really like us to go on a date sometime because I really fancy you. There is no beating about the bush. And so the other day, my friend who's autistic said to me, oh, she called me back. She said, oh, were you calling me earlier because you wanted connection? She just straightforward. Oh, I didn't get that. And I said, yes, that was it. I like that direct way of communicating. My daughter's very direct with me, and it's a bit of an educational process. I think that's what I'm saying, responding to what you said, Janaki. Like, I don't give a fuck is a stage, I think, that It's like what Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, called the teenage phase. And we have to go through that, and we go in and out of that phase as well, backwards and forwards. And I want to get to the phase where I bring people into that, and I'm like, yes, I know that the way I come across sometimes can be jarring. It can sound very direct or blunt or harsh. And it's not because I don't care. Like, I really care about these things. And that is my style of communication. So I think reframing things for people makes a big difference. Yeah, so that would be my tip. It takes self-awareness of, and all that coming up against people and triggering them and hearing what's triggering them. We can take that and say, because I am a speaker and a coach and I'm working with groups, I can let them in on that so that they're less likely to be impacted if I am very direct with someone in the group, for instance. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to add a couple things, if that's okay. One is we keep talking about differences and hiding these differences, right? And one of the things that I often remind myself and my clients is I can be amazing without being like everyone else. I don't have to be like them to do something well or to live my fullest. It's okay to be different. So that's one thing that I often remind myself is I can be amazing without being like everyone else. And then the other part that I wanted to speak to, this line between giving no fucks but how do we make sure that we are respectful to people and that we respect their needs? And the way that I look at it is if I do something and I realize that I hurt somebody, then I go back and I say, okay, was that in line with my values or not in line with my values? Because if I hurt them by doing something that was in line with my values, I can't be responsible for their pain. I have to take care of myself first. If I hurt them and that was out of line with my values, and I think, oh my gosh, I hurting them was the last thing I wanted to do in the world. Then I come back and I say, okay, how can I do this differently? Where can I give so that I can come closer to meeting their needs? And maybe I can go all the way. Maybe it's something just as simple as they say, I would like this type of direct communication, or I would like this. And that's easy enough for me. And I say, perfect. That's what I've got. And maybe sometimes it's something in the middle where I can go a little bit of the way, but I can't fully meet them there. And then it's up to them to decide, is that close enough for them, for our relationship and whatever it is, right? So that's one of the things that I try to walk that line as I look at how can I make sure that I am in integrity? And then once I am in integrity, what do I do to make sure that I'm showing respect and love and compassion to people after I'm integrity?
I a little bit to add to that. Thank you so much, because that is so true. Because what I find is it's right here. So for me, because I didn't even curse when I was younger, the zero fucks has given me liberation within myself. And it's not, oh, just this wild crazy. Yeah, I can be wild crazy sometimes. It's meeting people where they are, and then also being able to see through the illusion and see truth. And when you see truth, speak it. And when it's from your heart, it is pure. And I love how you said that's what it is. It's alignment with our integrity and our values, because that's so true. Like, one of my things I've been saying, like to my husband, I'll say, this may trigger you, and I'm here to speak my peace and not keep the peace, because I was that people pleaser. I had that mask big time, that if I was so afraid of not being liked.
Jenny.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Oh, God.
Thank you so much for carrying on this conversation. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's such a, hear me? Yeah, it's such a fine line to walk between when you coming into your own awareness about being a people pleaser in particular, because that's my story, and understanding how not to beat around the bush, standing in your power and say, this is what it is for me, and I'm owning this. I'm not saying that it's not a finger pointing, it's just me owning who I am right now. And I'd love to talk about it and get your feedback, rather than expect that reactive response that we all get caught up in all the time. So love this conversation. Thank you so much, ladies. Yeah. So I just want to go down a little bit into what happens when we take off those masks and when we start to, because we all have different roles in life as mothers, sisters, aunties, colleagues. We might be on a board, or we might be in a sporting group. We all have different roles, and in those different roles, we sometimes get asked, or the invitation is for us to not be our authentic self. Have any of you got examples of that? My example is in the workplace. Before I started my breathwork business and working with people in different ways, I was literally like one woman on a side of 200 men, because I worked in an industry that wasn't typically female orientated. And I found myself having to take on the persona of the way that men did it in the workplace to survive that environment. So I was wearing this hat, and what I found over time was that I describe it as being angular. I became angular. I let go of my whole and
We're losing you, Jenny.
You're cut off again. Would you like to go,
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, I was just going to, I think that the question was what happens when we start to be our authentic selves. And one of the things that I, again, for myself, as well as, clients that I work with, I typically, I don't want to say warn, it's not the alert. I usually alert them that when they do start to become their own self, other people might get upset, and that's expected, right? Those other people have been very used to this particular dance with you. And so when you show up and you say, I can't wear this mask anymore, I need to be myself, it is totally understandable that they're a bit thrown off guard. And they're like, wait a minute, this isn't how we dance. And it might lead to anger. And I encourage people to look at it as that anger doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. If it's a relationship that serves you, then ideally you can work together to figure out how you can be your authentic self in the relationship. But I often encourage people not to be put off or shrink in the face of that anger, because it's normal for them to be angry. Them being angry doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. And so it's okay to say, my goal is not to upset you. My goal is to be my authentic self. But I think that's really important, because so often what I see is that people start to show up as their authentic self, and then the other person gets angry and starts fighting for the old dance that they're used to. And the person shrinks back. And they're like, I can't be my authentic self because there wasn't space for me here. So that's one of my big things that I encourage people is expect anger or frustration or maybe sadness. Expect that the other person is going to be thrown off guard. They're going to be confused. That's totally normal. And there is still space for you within that to continue showing up as yourself.
You're good, Jenny? No? Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can add. First of all, I have 4 children and 3 little girls, so I get to role model for them. I may not be by the norm society, whatever norm is, the most perfect mom. Although what we do encourage in our house is expressing our feelings. What are we feeling? And owning our feelings. We don't say, you make me this way. I feel this way, and owning our feelings and being able to express ourselves. Sometimes I was like, wait, it's a little violent. It's also, that's a fun dance of being a mother as well, because letting your children have their own journey while still being the parent for them, that's a fun dance for that, because there's those lines. They're like, okay, wait. I always tell my children we live with love and kindness. And so what I witness is I have been told so much recently how many people in my community within Houston and Austin and the surrounding areas, because I also do things at festivals and stuff, how much I inspire people. And they're like, thank you for being you. I'm like, that's all I know how to be. That's all I know how to be. And so now it wasn't always the case, but that's what it does, is it really gives others permission. And like you said, how people do get upset, that is true, because you're used to playing this role and people are like, wait, you're being selfish. And I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to fill your cup. You're supposed to you're supposed to be self-full and fill your cup so you can continue to give, because everyone was used to me serving everyone else, and I still love to serve everyone else, because it's that dance and letting ourselves have the courage to be disliked. like you said, like that was so liberating for me when I first got kicked off the stage and I was like, oh, wait. And it's how we respond rather than react. That's how I witness. It's more about the responding versus the reacting to something. If we react, we know there's a trigger there. And if we respond, we're meeting that person where they're at. That's what I've witnessed in my journey. Yeah, I stand for it so much that I also witness when there is especially authentic expression of truth. When I feel uncomfortable and I don't want to speak up, that's my signal to speak. And so that's sometimes why I say, hey, I gotta speak up, because even my children will say, hey, mom, I gotta say this because I don't want to hold this in my body. And so children, they model who you're being, not what you're saying. And so it tickles me to witness my children sometimes when I'm like, wow, especially when conflict arises and how they can handle that. And I'm like, wow, like my daughters, it's okay, daddy and you fight, because you always come back to love. So I don't even hide that. My parents, I don't even hide that. Here I am, like me or love me, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to, that's what I say is I'm here for love, not to be liked.
I like that. I'm here for love, not to be liked. Thank you. And what about you, Samantha? Are you here to be loved? Do you have anything that you want to say, Samantha?
Jenny was asking about time when we had to mask, or we felt we had to mask.
Yes.
So I've never been able to go into, I've mostly worked for myself my whole life. And that, I think, was my fear, was always about losing my authenticity if I went into like a corporate setting. So I never did that. And I think those experiences can be really valuable and can really challenge us to be authentic, even within a culture that might not feel so aligned. For whatever reason, I have not done that in this lifetime. And so having my own business, that gives me a lot of freedom to do it exactly in the way that feels authentic to me. So I'm grateful for that. And it's really challenging. It's challenging because as we all know, the challenges of trying to create a business pretty much on your own. But the reward is being able to put ourselves out there in our very unique expression. When you're working for a company or an organization, you become a representative of them. And I never wanted to do that. I didn't feel like I was even capable of suppressing myself that much. Well, that's what I saw it as, suppressing my authentic self if I were to do that.
Good. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. And hopefully Jenny will be able to join us again. But in the meantime, the only thing that I'd like to share with that, and I'd love it for anyone else to continue until we wrap up, because it is getting much time to wrap up our conversation for today, is when we develop, I think Jenny was going down the path of what happens when we take our masks off. How do we feel when we really step into our authenticity? And for me, and I'm sure for a lot of others too, it's so freeing. But the biggest thing that I notice is the physical emotions. Because when we're not being ourselves, we can manifest dis-ease in our bodies. Right? But when we really just step into the power of who we are, that dis-ease, in whatever way it is just released and stuff. And a lot of the times, especially for women, it's abdominal. So you release everything that you're holding on because you're not being who you truly are. So would anyone else, as we wrap up, does anyone else have anything final that they'd like to share? And while you're at it, if you have anything that, any offers that are coming up, of course, we will be putting all your links below in the comments everywhere. But do you have any comment, anything that you'd like to share, and any final words?
I'd like to add something about when we start to show up as our authentic self, how does it feel differently? And yes, the freedom that you mentioned, another thing that I've noticed for that is I'm able to love others better when I love myself. And I know that before I was able to show up as my authentic self, things that other people did, especially the parts that I saw myself in there, and it upset me that I was doing those things. And I would feel really triggered when people did that, right? And when I was able to start loving and leaning into those parts, those darker shadow parts, that's when I was able to have compassion for myself, and I was able to show up and have compassion for other people. Then when they had that quality that tends to be frowned upon, I was able to say, yeah, I've been there too. And that's a really tough place to be. And I can show them compassion. So that's another thing that I've noticed in addition to that freedom that you mentioned is I can show up for other people better when I love myself and forgive myself for all my not flaws, perceived flaws, right? Those messy parts. When I love all the messy parts too.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. And tell us a little bit about anything that you have to offer, and what do you actually do?
Yes, I offer coaching for unwanted habits, and this can be hair pulling, skin picking, those body focused repetitive behaviors, but also compulsive scrolling or procrastination or stress eating or overspending. All of those things come from this space of dysregulation. And so when we can lean in and get curious about those behaviors and ask those behaviors, what are you trying to tell me? How are you telling me that I am out of balance? And then find other ways to meet those needs, that's when we can release those behaviors. So I offer coaching for people so that I can help walk them through that journey so that they can release those behaviors that are no longer serving them.
Thank you ever so much. We'll be putting all your links below.
Yes. Thank you.
Do reach out to these amazing women. And Samantha, what about you?
Yes, I run an online group for carers and parents of neurodivergent children. One of the members sent me this. I'll just read one sentence from her text is, I'm trying not to mask anymore. In the past, I have just acted or pretended that I'm doing okay, and people don't even know that I'm not okay at all. So this is a space where people, carers, parents can come and be seen and feel like they're connected into a community, which makes a huge difference to being able to regulate one's nervous system. If you feel like you're part of a community, you feel like you're connected, you're not out there on your own trying to cope with massive challenges. So that's every Monday evening. And then I work one-on-one with people who wanting to create a thriving life, to avoid that burnout that comes from masking, particularly for autistic people. And yeah, help them to become their authentic selves and to thrive in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you ever so much. And do you have anything else that you'd like to wrap up with about being you and how we can live our life authentically? Any last words of wisdom?
No, I think I've said enough. And yeah, for me, being authentic is sometimes saying that I don't want to talk anymore. I need to be silent. And that can be really hard in a social situation, to let people know that, yeah, I need downtime. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm done talking.
Thank you, and ever so much for sharing that. And what about you, Janaki? What your last words of wisdom?
Yes, my last words of wisdom is again with my reverence practice when I was thanking water and I heard water tell me that I'm your structure, and I was like, oh, all of a sudden I stopped trying to fit in this concrete structure and I felt so And then another time I was thanking water and I heard water tell me the highest form of currency, because I was saying, thank you, water, for all the currency you bring into my life. And then I said, oh, the highest form of currency is authenticity. And it was like, Oh my God. It was this light bulb that went off. And then all of a sudden, of course, we create the evidence and the confirmation everywhere in our world. And now I see it everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So be of water. Water perseveres. We are water. And another message I received from water is what brings in the rain of creation. And our feeling world and consciousness, everything is translated in consciousness. And our feeling world is represented by water. So letting ourselves, when we can be real and feel, that is the fastest way to move through anything. And the more we want to get through it, as speaking from my own experience, the more we stay stuck. So what I say is, sometimes I'm like, I fucking hate what I feel right now. God is not experiencing this. Okay, God, will you help me love what I'm feeling? Legions upon legions of angels, help me stay love, because the more I want to get through it, the more I stay stuck. So I ask for one drop, one mustard seed of love transcends the illusion. And it's our willingness to stay love through the unloved experiences. And so that has been huge in my life. Yeah.
So much, Janaki, and it's so true. Thank you ever so much. And tell us about anything that you have to offer, and of course, the Sounds of the Soul tribe that we are honored that you host.
Yes. So I facilitate for the Sacred You community over a year now. Maybe two, I don't know, time anyways. And it's a quantum sound journey. I never know what's going to come through me because I'm so much of water and flow. So I have no idea what's going to come. So it's really fun. And it's always so magical because it's simply connecting with presence, receiving presence, experiencing presence. And so I have the Sounds of Soul. I also am in creation of the Prosperous Portal, which will be launching soon. And that is the living codex of letting ourselves be fully human, the hue of man, embracing all the rainbow colors of shades while being divinity embodied, and the guide through all of our emotions. What does jealousy turn into? The sacred spark that it is the igniter, or anger, the inner authority calling you into your authorship, and all these ways of living in alignment with your ultimate version of yourself while being leading with your inner authority of authenticity. And so that's what I've discovered. That's where fulfillment is, where you can be the living well springs of wealth consciousness. It's not in the outer, it's the sacred structures. The structures are crumbling around us, the false secure structures, and the sacred structure of sovereignty is here. It's the Holy Trinity of Infinity. Confirmation, thank you. And so I have the Prosperous Portal, and then I facilitate monthly I Am journeys. The next one is I Am a Witch, Wild Inner Tender Child Heart. I Am stands for inner amplified magic, because magic exists in the presence of now. So I love serving as a muse, a mirror, a messenger, and a mentor. And those are my ways of service. And like I said, music is I love being God's muse, singing music. I channel music. Oh, and I have a Sounds of Soul retreat coming up where we get to marry ourselves. Speak about it's allowing yourself to receive your authentic expression of your gifts, and we commit to ourselves. And every time we do that, every relationship changes. My relationship with my mother, my husband, and my sister completely radically shifted.
Thank you. And we will be putting all your links below. And for everyone who is watching, I really do thoroughly recommend connecting with everyone. And I have to say, especially Janaki, because she runs an incredible tribe. But sound and everything that Janaki does for me, sound is my medicine. That's a whole nother story. But do click on those links below. And we'll also be putting links. Samantha also facilitates our Spiritual Entrepreneurs Exchange, which is part of Sacred You. And all these wonderful women also host and facilitate other wisdom circles and panel discussions that are coming up soon. So do click on those links below. Jenny, unfortunately, has sent me a message. She has totally lost internet. And we actually live in the same city, different parts of it. We had no internet this morning, and now Jenny's having problems. There must be massive solar flares going. Plus, it is quite windy as well. So it is just due to tech. However, Jenny will be back next month for another round of Being You, Living Life Authentically. So come and join us for the next one, where hopefully she will have really good internet next time. Click on the links below, check out Sacred You and everything that we have to offer. And thank you to these wonderful women. for joining us today.